for this evening's Historical Commission meeting. Suzanne, I guess you've given up the computer to the applicants. Okay, all right.
We lost our...
That's fine. Just a few reminders for us up here. We'll use our mics. If anybody's on live stream, we're not taking questions via live stream. And if there's folks here, we'll ask you to give your name and address when it's time for public comment. But with all that said, we are reviewing body, recommending to City Council. So we will start the August 19th meeting with item number 1 on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the July 15 meeting. Is there a motion to approve? There's a second? Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. So item number 2 on the agenda tonight is 718 East Mifflin Street. If those folks want to come forward here. Okay.
So they're willing to wait.
Okay. We can do that. I'm fine with that. So we'll hold on item number 2, 718. So 132, 134 South Prince Street. We can pass them around up here. Yeah, you can put them up here and we can pass them around. Okay, that's fine.
So I'm Rachel Haynes with the Vancouver Artifacts. Wendy Stephens with the Vancouver and Jocelyn Naples with Langston Housing and Redevelopment Authority. So our client.
If you want to, get yourself set up, and then I think if you hit the power button on those mics, they should turn green then. Sure, yes, and I can pass them. Perfect. Okay. Sample.
I think these are on the screen. These are probably more
Okay.
true to color.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
So those are all
That's the label. All right. Oh, back up and run. Oh, there we go. I'll put these on this side. We can pass them around when they get to that. Yeah. Yeah. So this came before, this was a conceptual discussion previously a couple months ago. Okay. Was it November? Okay. Wow. Time flies. Okay. If you can turn on those mics there.
If I should give this to them, just so they see what was approved.
Oh, this Zero.
Okay.
Okay, yes. Yes, okay, I remember that. Yeah, if you want to go through the project and, I mean, you can talk about the changes and then go through the materials. Yeah. They didn't go this way.
All right, so we're just going to walk you through what we submitted, and then we can go for an open discussion after that. But if you guys have any questions, we're happy to clarify as we move along. So this is the prominent building on South Prince Street. It's between Vine and Farnham, and we're focused on what we're calling the warehouse, this brick veneer building here, and the adjacent 132 South Prince Street row home that's currently painted yellow. So it's 2 properties on Prince and 2 properties on Water that will all become 1 property in the end. This is the rear side looking at Water Street. It's this gabled roof structure is the warehouse from Water. And to the left of that, or the north, is what we're calling the SRO, the single room occupancy unit building that was already on site. And all of that will become 1 address in the end. These are streetscapes stitched together of all the buildings on South Prince Street for context. So these were submitted during the conceptual review as well, but we're just going to zoom in on where our project is located. So it's on this second to last band when we're going down Prince Street. You can see what we're calling the warehouse. We're calling this the townhouse. And the scope of the adjacent buildings to the north and the adjacent buildings to the south. Our townhouse is in scale with the adjacent other row homes on the other side of the warehouse building as well. And then moving on to the Water Street side, if we zoom in just on the back side of our property, you can see our gabled warehouse structure, what we're calling the SRO here, and then the adjacent neighbor garage buildings.
It's across the street from the beer distributor, which.
Yeah, it's a very popular parking lot. This building right here is the beer distributor immediately across the Water Street alley and some other row homes on either side of it. These are the floor plans for reference with Prince Street on the right, Water Street on the left. First floor, and one new change is that we're proposing a second floor for the building. We had initially come to the conceptual review saying we were going to keep the whole exterior perimeter shell of the warehouse, but after we involved Caldwell, Heckles & Egan as a contractor for pre-construction and Baker Ingram Associates as a structural engineer, we identified in plan where we wanted CH&E to excavate down to the footings, and they went back a couple times because they just kept not hitting anything, and there were multiple slabs poured in what used to be a mechanic's garage, and then they ended up never finding footings or finding stone foundations under the CMU that you would have thought would have been a newer footing. So structurally, it just didn't seem sound from the engineer's perspective. So they recommended that we remove both the east and the west exterior walls and rebuild those, so facing Prince and Water. At which point we thought it might make more sense to add more density to the site to create more single-room occupancy units that we felt like the city could use. So that was a change from conceptual to now.
And I think we may have presented the second floor overbuild at the time, but it wasn't, the change is really we have to demolish the 2 elevations to accomplish the second floor overbuild.
So the little hand sketch elevation that Wendy would have presented to you before was keeping the fenestration openings of the warehouse more in line with what's currently there. It has one giant mechanics garage opening and two other ones that they infilled with storefront in the current condition, and we were trying to work around those existing openings, and now we're trying to return it more to a warehouse rather than a mechanics garage.
So it's basically a new building on the existing footprint.
Yes. There's very little left of it,
Yeah.
so unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, on the other hand, it's not a really valuable historic building either, so.
We feel fortunate that the client was supportive of getting the contractor in there to do select demolition, because we feel like had we not gotten that opportunity, it would have been pretty painful in the end when they started excavating.
You would have made the discovery in the middle of construction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or, yeah.
And I think the other thing is we are going to be, whether we get it certified as passive house, we have a passive house consultant that we're working with, so we're doing extra thick walls and everything that, to work towards that sort of net zero passive house. We're not sure where we're going to fall because we're still working on that, but that's a goal.
Yeah, so super insulation and thicker than normal walls and roof structures to kind of keep this thing resilient, especially in what they call code red and code blue time. So code red's when it's so hot outside, you just have to get people inside and surviving, not comfortable, just surviving. And then cold blue is when it's freezing cold outside. So the square footage inside is really important to the client to make sure that they can get as many people housed in those really rare scenarios that you're trying to get as many people in as possible for a temporary period of time. This is the roof plan so that you can see how we are proposing to incorporate solar panels, again, to help with resiliency and offset the cost of running this building 24 hours a day and housing people on the second floor in the SROs and also on the first floor congregate living and crisis family, and then also a day center. So hopefully services that can help get people on their feet or just through the day-to-day life, like laundry, resume services, English as a second language, exam rooms, trainings. So there's a lot of different uses going on here, and we're hoping that the solar panels can help offset that use throughout the hours and the years. These are our elevations. So the ones that are facing the public ways are this first one, Prince Street, showing what we're called the warehouse building and the townhouse. This is the courtyard, so facing north, not on a public way. And this is Water Street facing west. So the existing SRO building and the existing warehouse building, but no longer being a single story with a gabled roof, but instead being a two-story with a shed roof on top, kind of hearkening back to a sawtooth structure. And that would help house mechanicals, and it would be sloped for solar panels to get better efficiency from those arrays facing south. We would also like to put solar panels on the SRO here facing both Water Street and into the courtyard. We've worked with a solar consultant that said that this would be the most efficient way to get as most out of the existing site as possible. This is the most amount of coverage we can use, and it still would only provide about half of the energy use needed for the building, but it would help with the resiliency.
How far back is that sawtooth? It seems it's lighter there. Is it back 3 feet or?
A few feet back.
It looks like.
If you go up to the roof plan, well, you can kind of see it from the side view too. It's only about a foot back, but it could be pushed back further. The only thing is we need a lot of mechanical units on the roof, and so we've only provided the mechanical engineer with a couple little flat spots right here around this side light. So you would come up through the second floor, pop through the roof trusses, pop out a door onto a flat roof structure here, and that's where we're giving them space for the mechanical units. This little flat roof here and here have windows facing out from the SROs, so it's not ideal to put the mechanical units there, but we could cut in on the footprint of the sloped roof if that's something that would be preferred.
So the sloped roof isn't a mechanical attic.
It does house HVAC and ductwork. We're trying to run, I'll use my mouse to show you guys, we're trying to run the ductwork this direction through truss bays to pop straight down through the second floor through chases in the tiny closets that we're providing for the SROs to try to not suck up too much floor plan space. So the chases will, so all the horizontal movement of ductwork should happen up in that attic space and then come straight down through where it makes sense in each structural bay on the second floor and pop out at the first floor at those locations, rather than running ductwork through the ceiling of the second floor and the first floor.
But the actual mechanical units are going to sit on the flat roof area.
Yeah, the outdoor condensing units, yeah. This item is the physical finish board that we gave you items of, and here it's just labeled for you for discussion. And then below was the line item for each side, the warehouse facing Prince, warehouse facing Water, the townhouse, which is on Prince Street, and the SRO facing Water.
So you have the silver, whatever the name of, the silver brick there, that's on the whole facade on Prince Street?
That's what we were proposing.
And then there's a red brick there, is that the Water Street courtyard brick?
Yeah, we were proposing wrapping that around the interior of the courtyard a little bit warmer and around the Water Street side.
And then the ephes there is on the sawtooth.
Yeah, it's on that sloped roof structure.
And the green is for the, that's for the SRO building, and then the darker sort of blue-green, I guess I'll call it blue-green, is for the townhouse.
I think
Is that right?
I think it's hard for you to see the colors up there because
There
it's
it is.
washed out.
The one on the left is for the building that's already yellow.
Yeah, the one that
Yes,
says
that's right.
townhouse and it looks green on your
I reversed
screen
them.
is for the old townhouse. So it is currently painted yellow and we were proposing repainting that. We don't know what condition the brick is underneath. And it is currently painted. So we were, from a maintenance, remortaring standpoint, we were hoping to just repaint that. And then the SRO is currently vinyl. And we were hoping to, if the budget allows, reclad that in a hardy product and do a little bit beefier, more traditional trim. Right now, it's vinyl trim and it's kind of mitered at the corners. So in our elevations, we were proposing having a thicker casing and a traditional sill and adding a little extra trim piece around the fascia that is the overbite of the front porch. Just a couple changes to try to make it not so suburban. And then we would paint it that darker blue color.
Okay. I thought we were going to try to paint vinyl. Okay, good.
No,
I can't
he
hear
said
Steve.
he thought we were going to try to paint the vinyl.
Oh, okay.
No, we're hoping that we'll have it as a line item for the contractor to try to get those upgrades to that building, just to have it a little bit nicer.
Could you talk a little bit about the Prince Street elevation and like the function of the doors? Which is the primary entrance
Yeah.
from Prince Street?
So we'll look at the elevation first, and then we can look at the plan if you want more of a programmatic relationship. So the main entrance is going to be over here on the right, those double doors during the day when the program's functioning. That's where they're going to receive the crisis and emergency. The people right off the street are going to come through this door. And we liked the idea of getting them off the sidewalk so that they don't have to just be on display in front. So Water Street is right down the street from here, and you see them queuing up right in front of the front door. And we were hoping to give a more humane, private entrance sequence for that, and get them out of the direct beating sun there. So we have in plan, we have more of like a carriage house entrance there that they can walk through that brick entryway and get into the courtyard and enter the building from there. So the main entrance is right here, those double doors. To the right is a little gate for the trash alley like it currently is. And that door that used to be the main entrance to the townhouse, these are being lowered to grade for an accessible entry. Right now, they're about 3 feet off grade, so we're bringing that whole first floor down to be accessible for handicap entrance. but that will just be an emergency egress out of the stair. So the main door will be this double door, that'll be an emergency egress, and this will also be an emergency egress. It's going to be understated and not have hardware on the outside, so there's no confusion. And everyone will just go to those double doors that will be splayed open when they're allowed to enter on that street.
Okay, the reason I asked that is because I suspected that was the function of the different doors. But seeing the canopy and the sign over that door without hardware, I think is problematic because the canopy and the sign gives prominence to that door that people can't use to enter. And I think that is kind of problematic. You'll just confuse people. So I would just question whether you need that canopy there.
We don't think functionally we need it. I think there was some interest in creating some relief to that building, and I admit it might be a little confusing. Maybe we shift it over so it's just a three-dimensional element and shift it not to include the door,
Yeah.
just so it's an architectural element that centers on the building.
I assume that that's the entrance because that's where the canopy is and that's where the big sign is.
Yeah, I don't know how Jocelyn feels about that.
Yeah,
so-
I mean, I could see that happening, especially with the clients that we'll serve. If the canopy doesn't serve a functional purpose, I don't think that there would be an issue relocating it or eliminating it,
Okay.
and figuring out some other signage.
It is nice to provide some relief to the building,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're right. You
I
could
mean,
shift it
Could
2
it be
bays
some
over or
kind
something.
of, just kind of trellis structure that's not a covered roof? You know, that gives that kind of horizontal element, breaks up the facade, but it's not, doesn't read as a porch.
Yeah, and I think if we center it on the big window above, then it's off from being over the doorway, so it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we, for things like this, do we come back and represent that, or is there a,
Yeah, I don't think that's a detail.
I don't think so.
That would require you to come back,
oh,
but I think it's just something.
we should mention that.
Because
Yeah.
it's really, it's not so much about the compliance with the Secretary of Interior standards, it's really kind of a functionality of the building issue. So it probably doesn't need to come back, but it's just something that I think is worth
Okay.
kind of exploring alternatives.
Rachel just brought something up. You've probably run into this with the city. The entries, I guess, have to be recessed now. From the land development planning perspective, the engineers don't want doors out opening to the street, which we don't think is, we just don't understand this, but,
I understand it because I actually, 10 years ago, I exited the parking garage on King Street, door open right onto the sidewalk. Somebody was coming down the sidewalk on a bike.
so they got nailed.
And we crashed. So I can understand why they don't want doors
Yeah.
opening directly to the street.
Well, it's a little bit, it doesn't work with historic buildings very well, but we're going to have to move those doors in.
Well, it also creates, in this particular client, it creates a dangerous pocket along a street where bad things do happen right there already, which is why they closed that alcove off that exists. It's because people were hanging out in there and leaving things, and it was unsafe. It's a secret spot where people can stash things or go to the bathroom. And so we were hoping for this particular programmatic type to not have dark, well, they don't have to be dark, but just alcoves on the public street. But we understand that architecturally that might be necessary. So in plan that I'm showing here, we have this one that's egress. So from a plan standpoint, sure, we could recess it. We just didn't prefer that from a user standpoint. And then here, we can work around this. We can make the kitchen smaller and scoot the stairs in, and we can recess this in. But on that historic townhome, it's going to be a lot of recessing. It's going to be about 50% of that first floor will then be recessed.
Yeah, that would be kind of an issue, specifically on the town.
Yeah, I
Can
think,
you ask for a variance on that, just because, under the existing building code, the door swings would be, I guess you're still moving them out.
Zillion.
Yeah, from an egress standpoint, they have to swing out. And
Right, I mean,
so
that's-
we're just kind of in a pickle, especially on that townhouse.
yeah,
No, I would definitely, try to not alter the front of that much. I don't
yeah,
know.
because, I mean, you are
Yeah.
altering the facade by lowering the floor, which is kind of a big deal, but I think we talked about it when you were here in November, that it was, acceptable. But to then recess it, I think that drastically changes the character of that facade, and I think would be a problem from
Yeah, that's odd.
Secretary standards, so I think if the historical commission holds any sway, I think with zoning, I think we would support not recessing those openings.
Even on this one as well.
I mean, it would be, it seems better that way, the way you have it.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, it's only gonna open if someone needs egress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's not like it's gonna be functional all the time.
Yeah, neither of those other two single doors are going to operate on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And you can really, you can avoid the potential of running into someone by putting a planter next to the door or a bollard.
okay, bollards or something.
Yeah, something so that.
And the sidewalk's very wide, so if we did that, okay. We'll talk to Cindy.
Other
Again.
questions from folks up
Yeah,
here?
because I would discourage insetting those doors.
While we're looking at the elevation, is there a reason that you're switching between double hung and casement from first and second floor?
Yes. Do you,
Yeah, we felt that this elevation was so plain currently and that we thought it would feel more homey to have the double hungs like what are on the rest of the street with all the row homes at grade level where people are walking by. And it also gave a nice definition break that we could frost the windows below so that you can't see right into the homeless shelter. These particular rooms facing Prince are intended to be family crisis units where if a family of 1 to 6 people wants somewhere to stay together. It's unique at this shelter that at other shelters, they have to split men and women up, but here they could be together as a family unit with their own bathrooms, and they don't have to worry about children going from space to space unattended, so it's more of almost a hotel room for temporary housing. So that's the frosting, the meeting rail gave a frosting point.
and I think that the passive depositive, our passive house consultant, was really pushing for the energy of the casement windows where we could put them, and that's why the casements are up above. We did look at a meeting rail up there, but it just wasn't very, Rachel, on the casement.
Yeah, we were trying to just be true to what it is. So if it's a casement, not put in a meeting rail. If it's a double hung, have the meeting rail. We have since learned the limitations on the passive house window manufacturer that the passive house consultant would like to use. And the casements shown can be truly casements, and the double hungs on the first floor, they said need to be a fixed unit with a simulated meeting rail in the middle, that we would frost below that.
Are they, I know you're working towards this passive, are they gonna be operable then, or is everything?
The client doesn't want them to be operable because people can push things through the windows or out the windows, and they feel from a safety standpoint, they want the security, the access control of having control over things you could slip in and out of a window, even if it's only 4 inches on Prince Street.
So,
So could that, I'm wondering if we're going in the same direction, could the second floor then be the same simulated fixed window?
The second floor will be operable for the programmatic use of the space. I can talk here and talk.
Yeah,
True case.
it's so hard to hear.
Yeah, they're truly functional.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
They have the little dash line representing that they function,
Yeah,
whereas the
nice.
first floor says fixed on it.
so.
But you could have a simulated meeting rail on the casements that open up like that.
But to
So
your
the
point,
fixed
it's a
windows-
casement window, so don't make it look like not a casement window.
So the fixed windows are not true double hungs where the glass are at different planes? They're-
Unfortunately, no.
Okay,
Because of the passive house,
yeah,
they really don't, if we want to get certified as a passive house, we're not allowed to use the double hungs because of air infiltration. Yeah, unfortunately. But we did like that it, from a distance, looked more in
Absolutely.
So
flavor with the row
What about
homes.
the windows on the townhouse? Are they all fixed?
Those
Are those,
are small enough that they're able to be double hungs, truly.
okay,
And because they're into spaces that are not occupied by users, the passive house consultants were saying that they're more willing to be lenient on that than the other portions of the program where there's users occupying the space.
yeah,
So the row home is more of stair circulation and storage on that second level and the attic space.
so those spaces can be outside of the passive house envelope?
They would still technically be within it, but they're not, the air infiltration is not affecting the user.
Okay,
So in like a cold code red or code blue situation, when this system's really pushing to keep people just baseline comfortable for resiliency, that wouldn't need to be the case right here because it's an emergency stair and storage.
Danielle, did you have a follow-up comment on the windows or? Okay. Other questions here?
We would have the same question about recessing the entries on Water Street that we did on Prince Street.
Really?
We don't have the problem with the SRO building because it's off the street.
Off the street?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know whether this applies because it's not on the city street.
yeah, we just
Yeah.
wanted to double check.
yeah, it's not on a public sidewalk there. so
No.
It should be an issue.
Okay.
Okay, and where is this material being used?
That's representing mahogany, and that's for color of entry doors.
Oh, okay, I see that down the corner.
It won't be a true mahogany because of the passive house, but it will be a mahogany wood grain or color.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, that makes sense.
Did you pass them?
I think I gave that to them.
fiberglass doors and,
We were looking at steel because we feel like it'll perform better, but we can use fiberglass if that's a preference. We just thought from a durability standpoint,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
the client really liked the warmth of traditional wood doors, so that's why we were leaning that direction.
okay.
So I have a question for Suzanne. This says new construction, but it sounds like we need to vote on demolition as well. Is that correct?
Admiralty advertiser listed as demolition. I thought it was just refacing and overbuild, and there wasn't a demolition application, so I guess you can act on it as such.
Well, we can tell you what is remaining of the plan, if that's helpful. We'll go back to the first floor plan.
I mean, it sounds like 90% of the structure is going to be.
Yes. So, on the first floor, structurally, the entire east wall is not sound because it sits on a stone rubble foundation with no footing. The same is true with the west wall. The south wall, that's also the case, but out of respect for the adjacent neighbors who are so close, we wanted to leave that wall and the existing windows that are there, which are basically on the property line, and do a double wall inside with a trench foundation. And this was all run by the engineer and the contractor, and this is what they feel is reasonable to keep that wall. So from the original rectangle, what is remaining is that southern wall after all of this exploration. But this building is remaining, and so is this building. So since it is technically all one property, It will be all one property owned by one client. We're calling it 134 South Prince Street is the number that we're going with for all the utilities. So that's why we submitted it as a renovation.
Suzanne, do you have a problem with us adding demolition? Because it's a major demolition project.
Yeah, exactly. No, but then you will have to go
Have to go to-
to the city council committee meeting where demolitions are discussed, and that would be the public meeting
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
I
that's in
think that's-
about 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah,
after Labor Day.
yeah. 'Cause I don't think we could justify not voting on demolition when there's so much demolition.
Right, so we'll have to do that.
Yeah.
Other questions? I mean, I think it's going to be a great project, and the presentation is good. I think you answered the questions. And it's not really a significant change from the conceptual, even though you're going up to another story or whatever, but it's not drastic.
Well, it was going to be 2 stories.
Right.
First time, but you were going to keep.
Yeah.
the
Keeping the facade there,
facade,
yeah.
And we just, before you make some sort of motion, I just want to call attention to one more thing to make sure you saw it in the drawings. Is that okay?
Sure.
We had sunshades drawn in elevation, so you can see them from the sides and the front, but they're so minuscule, we just want to make sure that you didn't miss it. So the idea is to stop direct solar heat gain on the east and west facades. And the passive house consultants that we're working with have done these really minimal metal sunshades that they say significantly helps block the direct solar heat gain. So on Prince Street, we were proposing just straight little horizontal canopies. And on Water Street, we were proposing the L-shaped ones because they did solar models that said that was the shape that was best for this site. So we're trusting their expertise on that. And we liked that they were a little bit more minimal and modern. But that's a reference image from one of their other projects that we were mimicking for this project. But since it is so small in elevation, we just wanted to make sure that you saw that. Also in our finished board, we had called out the black finish as the sunshade finish. But we didn't, just want to make sure that you see that.
Okay, yeah, could you zoom back into the Prince Street elevation?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what those heavy lines.
So this represents no sunshade because it was under a canopy, but we would propose bringing that in if that was removed. So this is a vertical soldier course of brick, just flush with the elevation above a door, acting as a lintel. And that would be here as well, except the multiple lines represent the sunshades. And then I can show you better from the side view.
Actually, could you, okay, go ahead.
So they have a little bit of a taper to them. And I also have a detailed drawing I can pull up if that's helpful. We just didn't submit that along with the,
Could you go back to the Prince Street elevation again?
yeah, sure.
This kind of addresses my concern about that canopy. Could that canopy go away?
Mhm.
And then where you're showing soldier courses?
Yeah.
Could that be a continuous sunshade across those 3 openings?
Yeah, do you feel like that would still indicate it as some sort of entry, or you feel like that would be fine because there's so many sunshades?
Well, I think that would give you your kind of extra horizontal kind of accent. It would be smaller than the canopy. I think you would probably remove that sign.
Yes.
And I think if it were in line with the other sunshades, then it wouldn't read as, an entrance canopy.
Yeah, it wouldn't read as like a door function, it'd be more of a window function, that makes sense. And then from the Water Street side, this is looking the canopy below, but each window would have this like longer tapered L-shaped shade.
And that would be on the south side, and then.
That would be on the west side.
Well, the west facade, but the,
Vertical elevation.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
So if you're shading the
yes. So it's kind of blocking the sun as it comes around late in the day.
you can see it's sort of heavy on
Yeah,
the head at the south side of the window.
I do have a drawing on here I can show you that's more detailed if you'd like.
Okay.
I think it makes sense.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
A 3D rendering would have helped.
What?
I said the 3D rendering would have helped,
Oh, yes.
but.
Just as far as the front is concerned, I wouldn't want to vote with a specific solution to box them into something. So in terms of the canopy and the shades, is there, as long as it's not outlandish and a drastic change, the acceptance of the small shades and that canopy in some configuration, or changing the canopy to the sunshades and getting rid of the canopy would, something within that
Yeah,
might make sense.
sounds like a motion.
No, I don't do that.
Do you want to talk about that or no?
We might want to, because there's something else we're tossing around. I don't mean to prolong this for you, but we're thinking of changing the ephes on the triangle to standing seam and just giving a little bit of tilt back away from the street. So it just reduces the impact on the street and looks more like a roof element. So we take the canopy metal that you see there, standing seam, and just, rather than going straight up with ephes, this is something that we've just started to consider, which we thought would be favorable to you, but
I think the standing seam would be nicer
mhm.
than the ephes.
So from the side, just so we are all on the same page, if you can see my mouse, it would start here and kind of slope back a little bit, more like a mansard roof or something, just in that plane on the two facades. And those would be clad in the standing seam metal, which looks like the silver galvaloon color here, rather than the gray ephes.
I don't know if sloping it back is helping anything at that point. There's a lot going
Actually,
on.
because it's a shed roof, sloping it in another direction,
It's going to call attention.
Complicated.
I think having it vertical would be fine, but
Yeah.
changing the material, I think, is an improvement.
I just think it'll look better up there. We've started to look at this in 3D, and
Yeah,
it was one thing that,
so I think if you could tell us definitively you're going to keep it in plane and you're going to replace it with standing seam metal, I think we could recommend,
it benefits our solar
We can
too.
make a
We need the area.
I think if you do anything more than that, then I think we're getting to the point where the design would
Correct.
come
I
back
would
because
agree with
there
that.
are
Okay.
changes.
Okay.
Um,
We'll do exactly that. We'll keep it
Okay.
vertical, and we'll,
I'm prepared to vote to recommend approval if it's just a change of materials
Yeah.
and not a change of plane.
okay.
Yeah, it's like you said, Steve, when we were looking at it in 3D, we were like, maybe we should
Yeah.
do something nicer.
All right, since we need to also vote on demolition, somebody like to make a motion for recommendation of the demolition first. It would not be in the packet. I know, do you have your, the booklet?
I can do it.
Okay.
What's standard? Right.
Don't they usually have someone from the building department here? Usually.
You guys can see.
It's not John Peters, is there? Yeah, it's not. So John's on it.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that City Council approve, is it a certificate of appropriateness still for demolition? A certificate of appropriateness for the proposed demolition at 132 and 134 South Prince Street. It would be the removal of the the Prince Street and the Water Street exterior walls. And this meets the Secretary of Interior standards to the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration features and spaces that characterize the property shall be avoided.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Hey, is there any discussion on that motion? All right, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I guess I didn't ask before we go to the next one. Is there any public comment on this one? Should have asked earlier. I don't think there's any public comment here. All right. Danielle, do you want to make a motion on the next one?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that City Council approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed new construction at 132, 134 South Prince Street. Construct a two-story overbuild that to existing one-story cement block buildings. Well, I guess that's not. It'll be a new. Yeah, it'll be all new. Fronting South Prince and South Water Streets to include rebuilding east and west exterior walls with new finished materials and fenestration per the submitted architectural plans and proposed building materials. This work meets the Secretary of Interior Standards 9 and the design standards.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think there's a condition.
Yes.
Condition is,
Yeah.
we have, and then okay.
Yeah, she did second. Yeah.
All right, Louis seconded it.
So
All right,
John
so
seconded it.
additional comments?
Additional comments are the pent roofs will be clad in standing seam metal rather than EIFS shown in the application, and that some consideration will be given to changing the canopy on the Prince Street side.
Any other comments? All right, all in favor of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries.
Because we're adding demolition, it does have to go to the city council committee meeting, which is September 3rd, which I think that's the day after Labor Day.
Yes, Tuesday
Monday,
after.
but
Yeah.
it's probably the Tuesday, but I'll send you the motion language tomorrow,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, thank you. Get their samples back.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
grab them.
Get their up on the counter. I don't think so. You guys the rest of it. All right, we'll jump back to 718 East Mifflin Street. If they want to come up and set up, does...
Hi, folks.
Hey,
So sorry about being late,
that's all right.
especially to these folks who weren't expecting to go first.
They pivoted, okay. You can get set up, and then when you're ready, if you want to introduce yourself, and then just go through the project.
That's not live? Okay. Is that that's the only connector you have? I don't have a dongle that'll switch it to my computer.
Is there anything else?
Can I buy your dongle?
I don't know what that is.
The adapter?
This thingy?
Yeah. You know that.
That goes in and
Like pay you
HDMI.
for this? Are you staying?
No, just
Or
give it
you-
to someone and then we'll get it later. Give
Okay.
it to Suzanne.
Oh,
Yeah.
Leave it with Suzanne.
Yeah,
It's a far
we'll just
walk.
make sure it all works first.
Amazing project, by the way.
Aw,
Really hope
thanks.
it's successful.
So we were sticking this in the computer and
Yep.
then, yeah.
I wanted to see Randall land.
Well, you can. Stick it out.
I might just stick around just to see
There we
it a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you all have your own screen? You can see that? Okay.
Can, yeah.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, good. I've got less than half of the materials that arrived, and they're not the most exciting ones exactly, but something to play with and touch. How much intro am I able to do? How much teeing it up?
Were you here previously for a conceptual?
No.
So,
No, we're trying to,
We've seen the material, but there's been no presentation of it.
right. I had COVID last month, and that's why we're here now. But yeah, we were trying to do conceptual and approval.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can start from the beginning. Yeah.
Sounds good. So, the reason this project has a name, is because of that gentleman right there, Ron Rambo. And I'm gonna blame his mom for me being late, because I was over at the site, and you don't cut Joyce off. It's not a good idea. Ron, has cerebral palsy and faces a lot what millions of Americans face in a world that's not so great at creating accessibility for everyone, even post ADA, and was getting accepted or rejected from programs on technicalities for certain benefits, and getting hung up on by landlords as soon as they find out that he's in a wheelchair, which of course is illegal, but there's no enforcement mechanism for that. And his stipend has finally had allowed him to get a place that's got like 7 steps out front and allows him to pay for a sort of acceptable ramp in the back, et cetera, et cetera. His bathroom is dangerous for him and his caregivers to really use almost at all. So a lot of the stuff that most of us here take for granted is just not available to Ron and millions of Americans that face similar challenges. So he and his mom, Joyce Killian, who lives right behind this site, and I'll point out all the geography to you, we're kind of wringing their fists about all of this. And Joyce made a sort of offhand comment, it's too bad you can't find yourself an architect for the land back there, because if you could have it. Well, Ron, being the kind of social butterfly and like guy that sits at social nodes, starts going around town. He added green right away. He said, starts going around town at Square One and Central Market saying, I'm going to build a greenhouse on my mom's land. Like it was just a certainty that he was declaring. I grew up at 18 Parkside Avenue, which is like an eighth of a mile from this place. I went to Burroughs, Lincoln, and McCaskey. Moved on to Drexel for architecture from there, and I'm now with a firm called Seven Group, which was sort of the foremost green building consulting firm in the Mid-Atlantic region in the more recent green building movement in the late 90s and 2000s. And we also have started a nonprofit called, actually the legal name is Sustainability Nexus, but we're DBA, Regenerative Nexus. So being a hometown guy in the green building movement pretty prominently, actually ran the lead certification process for USGBC for a few years. And I was still on the board of Theater of the Seventh Sister at the time. And when Ron was going around to all these sort of social hubs of the city declaring these things, someone said, have you met Max yet? And we got introduced, and Ron threw the idea out, and I don't think he was even done asking before I was like, I'm in. And having fairly recently left the U.S. Green Building Council and being on the kind of international stage of green building leadership, I was able to bring my green building network to bear on this. So we have the same engineering team as the NASA and Google flagship building on this little house in a low-income neighborhood in Lancaster. One of our team members looked at our team list and said, this team should be working on Hudson Yards, not a little house in Lancaster. And I said, no, it should be working on both. And they were like, okay, take it easy. So we've been working on this for a good long time. Part of the theory here is nobody's handing out basic run-of-the-mill houses to people with mobility challenges. So for it to be attractive, it really needed to be extraordinary. So the rationale is it'll actually be easier to fund it if it's more innovative and more expensive than if it's cheaper and boring. And so we used all the skill that we could muster to create the best possible project. And at this point, it's a universal design and community health innovation and education project. It will be owned by the nonprofit. Ron will have permanent access to it for the rest of his life, and he insists that we make sure after he passes, we didn't bring that up, by the way, he brought that up, that after he passes, someone else with special needs end up gaining access to the building as well. In fact, we have a bunch of features in this project that because of the particulars of his mobility, he can't even use, but just in case a visitor can, or the next tenant can, he wanted it all in there. So that's the quick sort of story of the project. This is the guy, he's over my shoulder, so we don't really need the picture of him, but at one point we took him to the link to do a tour of the Eagles Stadium, because as you can see, he's a big Eagles fan, and they have a very green stadium. So that's Ron on the site. It's about a 10,000 square foot site. That's an existing asphalt driveway, and an existing 2-car garage just to the west of it. Oh, you can't see my cursor. And then there was an old insulation company building, right? It's a heating? Keener was, I guess, an insulation company that used to have a building here. So there's a couple little like foundation remnants. Joyce lives right down here. You can see with the kind of scribbling on it and the pathway from the driveway to there. So being a green building consultant, asphalt is 2 words assigning blame in my book, but we don't like it. But at one of our community cookouts, we found out that there were 2 other neighbors in these other houses on East End Avenue that were actually using the driveway to load and unload their wheelchairs and then push their wheelchairs through the unimproved grass alley to get into the backs of their homes. So very quickly, we green building nerds shut our mouths about not liking asphalt because we realized it was actually the most important element on the site at the moment. So Joyce is donating the site to Nexus, and we're going to maintain, Joyce needs access to her driveway and half the garage, so we're going to build that into the contract. But we set about designing this project. I'll give you some whiz-bang PowerPoint animations to blow your minds a little. So that's a joke also. So this sort of L-shaped area without streets is campus of Thaddeus Stevens Technology, and we're kind of in the 4th quadrant if that were a full square. We zoom in a little. We're kind of behind these trees. Let's flip it over and look at it from the north. Wow. So that's the site down there. It's not the best imagery of it. I'll give you a whole bunch more. But that's the driveway and the garage there off the shadow. Taking some other kind of views of it. It's hard. There's a red star that's hard to see up there, but I think on your screens is good.
Yeah, we can see it okay. That's not great.
So that's the site. Zooming in a bit, that's also the site. And we're going to kind of like walk up the street real quick. So the only way in is, so this is East Mifflin, and the kind of only way in is there from the west side. It dead ends at campus at the other end of the block. So if we kind of approach in this way, I have little key plans in the upper left. So this is just, you've come down East Mifflin a little bit, looking back at the row of houses. I'm spacing on the name of the street right here. Anybody? But if we kind of progress our way down, turn our heads, now we're looking at the site. That's the garage on the right and the empty site on the left. Continuing to move toward it. Now we're getting pretty square to the site. Looking back up East Mifflin. Zooming back out to kind of walk up the other side of the street. So that's looking to the left. Just kind of moving up the side of the street opposite the project. What we've got here mostly is some masonry, but a fair amount of wood and metal sort of shed buildings. They're almost all mechanic shops on Mifflin there. I'd like to joke that my superpower is getting ahead of myself. So we intend to, as this project succeeds, talk to the owners of those businesses about possible just transitions as perhaps in the coming decades, EVs become really prominent and threaten these businesses, these small locally owned businesses, and see if we can support like transition to EV maintenance and or indoor farming to connect with the farm component of our project, which I'll talk a little bit more about. Zooming back out again, the site is now here. Campus is kind of the bottom in the left side. So as we sort of start looking, zooming in there, looking at the site, this is just a crude kind of semi-transparent overlay of the building. Looking west, back up Mifflin, it's going to sit about there. Sort of backing up as we go. Got to remember there's a key plan in the upper left if you lose orientation. So kind of more of the same, but then if you swing your head around, it just kind of dives into like these giant lawns that Thaddeus Stevens is mowing. We are actually in talks now with the Dean of Science and Technology at Millersville about actually their new big science building and beginning to connect Rambo Land to their ag program and potentially co-curriculum development. So again, filed under Max gets ahead of himself. I want to start an ag program at Thaddeus Stevens College and farm all their lawn and turn their lawnmowers into farmers. And not eliminate any jobs, but reduce the carbon footprint and increase the food production of their campus. We're in close partnership with Hawa Lasana of Deca City Farms. I don't know if anybody knows her, but she's doing really interesting work on food insecurity in Lancaster. And so there's a partnership there, and we actually have a whole program planned where we can address food insecurity across the entire city over about 10 years. So this is our kind of whiz-bang hero shot. Again, we're back on Mifflin. The garage is off-screen to the right. We're sort of looking up towards campus. It is, I can share some of the energy information about it at the end, but I'll try to stick to my slide sequence. Interrupt at any point, guys. Like, it's a lot more interesting if it's not just my voice the whole time, I promise. I guess one thing we're saying here is, and I'm still kind of playing with the language, is we kind of recognize that the aesthetic fabric of East Mifflin is maybe not what you would call super sacred, but there is an idea here about what I'm starting to call rurban. So Lancaster is known far and wide as a place that great food comes from, mostly outside of the city. But I do think the city, to some extent, absorbs and at least is nested in that identity. So this idea that the city itself can also begin to reflect the county's sort of essence would be interesting. So that's one of the reasons our rainwater collection cistern is sort of on display. So the idea is that there is this sort of subtly agricultural look and feel to this to some extent, but it's also pretty modern and sleek. So essentially what the forms of the buildings are really just trying to maximize sort of the optimization of our performance goals in concert that have to do with accessibility, energy performance, water performance, food performance. The idea is the building itself is a demonstration of universal design and community health, but the site is a demonstration of what the core of low-income urban blocks might start to do. Through partnerships over time and a program we're calling YIMBY, Yes in My Backyard, we can start to farm our neighbors' yards if they opt in. We can replace their roofs and stick solar on it, collect power and water off the roofs, and then put a battery in their house. We're going to start with Joyce's house. Your mom agreed to this today, by the way, Ron. We'll stick a battery in our neighbors' houses, and not if, but when the power grid goes down, their fridge and respirator will never turn off. So we're creating a level of health resilience. These are all kind of subsequent phases that this first phase will enable and fits with Ron's. It's an extension of Ron's additional intentions. I have way too many examples of that I can go into if we get into it. A sort of on-screen materials palette for you. I wasn't able to get, we're either doing the Rich Light or potentially Hardy board. They'll look essentially the same, cement fiber siding. It's like a 100-year material. The roof will be standing seam, metal, which is the sort of less shiny of the two metal plates that I gave you. We threw the ivy on there because we're going to have a vegetated wall with a pedestrian cover here on the north side. So once upon a time, cities covered their sidewalks with their buildings so that people could walk across them without getting rained on. We're doing our tiny little part of that. And so, yeah, it's sort of the black and silver thing, but we also are really wanting to warm it up with the sort of rich honey-colored wood on the underside of the roof, and that's continued on the interior of the building. This is also, I don't know who this is going to freak out or excite, but this sort of design under the porch there is a pollinator hotel that will likely include bird boxes and maybe even, or bird houses and maybe even bat boxes. That tends to freak people out until you start talking about Zika and stuff and how bats eat all the
It's probably
disease vectors.
In Lancaster, you're going to get groundhogs.
Yeah, down on the ground there. Do they eat bats?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
The-
not something that historic
So
commission.
close to the ground.
Yeah, not generally. Yeah. And again, some of that's, being able to experiment with that and plug and unplug things with our educational partners. A couple of I've mentioned. We're also in touch with the Public School Systems IU program and wiring this into their curriculum. The 3-form acrylic, that kind of translucent thing, is a paneling system around this little vestibule bump out. The idea is that the donor wall will be the side facing into the site here. So there'd be sort of etchings on that. And sort of rather than, a sconce or some kind of can in the roof, when a motion sensor is triggered or something by folks walking up to the side of this, the box will sort of glow. What else on materials? So there is some steel. There's a possibility, and if there's a change, we'd be happy to come back and talk to you, of course. There's a fair amount of steel here. One of our kind of main strategic approaches is to the High Foundation. And High likes their steel and concrete, so we're hoping we could get some free concrete and steel. But we also are building into our Revit 3D model an add alternate, which would be heavy timber, which could replace the steel. I do think that's probably a good moment to mention that, we have pretty hardcore performance goals on this, and if people start throwing materials at us, we're going to make changes that don't compromise those performance goals. We're going to be very active about pursuing the materials that are shown and that we want. And so far, we have a really incredible success rate of getting contributions to the project. At this point, we think we've had about $300,000 worth of in-kind design and engineering that has gone into this, which is way more than a house should ever have. But people keep saying yes, I guess, and I hope tonight that continues. But so I'll keep walking through this. This is not a hero rendering, but what you might call a gray clay view from the other end of the house, kind of looking back at it. We're actually talking to a greenhouse company about getting that donated. There's a ramp on sort of the far side of the greenhouse that gets you from essentially street height the whole way down to driveway height. The other kind of idea over here is right behind this tank is a set of stairs. Stairs are more accessible for some people, so we want that variety of options. Floor plans, if you want to geek out on those, we are doing a little bathroom install in the existing garage, and some food prep like canning and pickling will happen in the garage, but by and large, we're leaving that untouched. Side elevations, I don't know how, we can probably go back and unpack these. One change to flag for you, this will look a little different than what you've looked at, is we've actually filled in a couple of windows, so we were skipping a couple of these. but for various reasons, we're kind of making that consistent across the facade now, so we're not skipping a couple is the current plan. This real quick, just to geek out on, is a computational fluid dynamics model that we ran. So this is what you get for a lot of that amazing free in-kind expertise. When we decided to stick a greenhouse to the south of this thing, we were worried about the cross ventilation impacts, that it would hurt the cross ventilation that we designed around. But in fact, it created a Venturi effect in that breezeway and actually pushed air into the house a little harder. So that was kind of a happy accident. So that's some of the whiz bang, and doing things along those lines. I'm getting cursor lost. Doing things along those lines are why we're able to accomplish things like this. So an average house in this climate zone has an energy use intensity of 43. You don't need to worry about what EUI means necessarily if you don't already know, but like 12's a lot less is the point. So this is ours. And this is accomplished basically because the geometry is near perfect in terms of how it responds to sun and air. So we were running energy simulations, and if we moved the southern overhang back an inch, energy use went up. If we moved it forward an inch, energy use went up. So we found kind of this sweet spot on the overhangs. And then some of the stuff the other project was discussing, the sort of air tightness and the R values of the walls and the roof, get us to this point. And then if we cover that now, the much bigger roof because of the generous overhangs in solar, it can produce between 8 and 10 times as much energy as it uses, the house itself. And the idea is that gets used up in grow lights and pumps and other people's respirators, essentially. So that's it. Ron says thank you. Ron in his paper hat at square one. Yeah, sorry for droning on. Hopefully that was useful.
Yeah, it's real helpful.
Whoops.
Are
Oh, great.
thoughts or questions?
I'm just curious, do you have all the funding you need for the construction or not yet?
Sorry, one more
The
time.
funding you need for the construction?
Yeah, so we're actually submitting on the High Foundation Opportunity Grant on September 1st. Actually, our web developer and technologist, his father was the civil rights commissioner at the White House at the point that ADA got passed. And he's a blind man who then started a mobility foundation. And so our current strategy is to get hopefully a couple $100,000 from him as a match and dangle that in front of High and hope they match it and exceed it. And that would pay for the house pretty easily. And then we're talking to others about product and material donations. We've already got some commitments. Armstrong said they wanted to give us all our ceilings, and I was like, oh, we better put some ceilings in it.
A solution to a problem you didn't have.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that it's a good project. I do love the passive, aspect, the green aspect, but also the accessibility, for when my mom was sick, for about a year, we were working around her mobility issues, and it was much more of a challenge than I thought it would be.
Yep. I blew out my ankle and gained appreciation. It was like, wow, it's hard to get around the world, even with that. But yeah, that's one of the messages is actually if we're lucky, we're all going to experience mobility challenges if we live long enough to. So this is widely relevant, we think.
To your point earlier about the context, there's not a lot of context to draw from. So, the building might seem out of place elsewhere, but I don't feel like it does here. So, designing it around good energy efficiency and everything you said makes sense. So,
But I think honestly.
Generally, that works.
The context of this neighborhood is utilitarian buildings, shed roofs, large openings, so it really, you do kind of check the boxes.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
on the face of it, would seem like, how does this fit in a historic district? But given this particular context, kind of does.
yeah, maybe even invites it upward into better material treatments or things we might prefer anyway.
So
Yeah, that was our thinking.
honestly, this design probably wouldn't work in any other neighborhood.
Right, right.
That would be a different discussion, but I think this is a really good solution.
Yeah, the agrarian motifs are kind of the only historic leg we have to stand on in terms of what we're presenting here.
Now, you're harvesting rainwater. Is any of that going to be reused for like gray water in the dwelling?
Yeah, so the washers and the toilet will be flushed with gray water.
Okay.
And then an awful lot's going to go to irrigation. We have kind of an interesting situation where we're doing some things that sort of a lot of our green building friends would cringe at, because the sort of paradigm is use less of the harmful sewer and tap water. So everything's about flush and flow rates, but we're doing a comprehensive water model, and we're looking at like how much water is going to be in that thing on which day. And we're actually going to have situations where the thing that makes the most sense to support healthy hydrology is to waste water at times. So we're setting it up so that we can like rinse the solar panels if we need to get rid of water, which will cool them and clean them and improve their performance, and make clouds kind of. And we have a swamp cooler in the greenhouse, so it doesn't get too hot in there, so we can grow year round. So we've got, and the city's new stormwater requirements are intense for the geology that we have in this city. And so we're going to have to be able to exit a lot of water really easily, but we also are going to work to be able to, it's designed to survive droughts and monsoons, basically. That was more than you asked. Sorry.
Any other questions or comments?
No?
All right. Any public comment? Okay. Somebody like to make a motion for East Mifflin Street?
I will.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that City Council approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed new construction at 718 East Mifflin Street, to construct a new one-story single-family dwelling and a greenhouse on an existing open parcel at 718 East Mifflin Street per the submitted architectural plans and building materials. And this work meets the Secretary of the Interior Standards number 9 and the design standards.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, motion carries.
As they are a recommending body only, so it goes on to city council. They will hear it on September 10th, which you don't have to be there, but somebody is welcome to be there if you want to show the nice project. And I'll send you the motion language tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it.
All right, next is item number 4, which is 330 East King Street. If they want to come up. All right, thank you for your patience. If you want to introduce yourself and introduce what you're proposing to do.
Emmanuel Byler, you have it as 330 East King Street.
And do you have material, or Suzanne, are you going to pull up stuff?
Pull up the-
Yeah, photos, okay. You want to go through
So this is
The
where
explanation?
in fact,
your process of constructing?
Yeah, most of that is done already. I was painting the building and then I came across some stacked stone I thought would look good at a 10-foot height below a little pent roof there. And in air I put it on, I didn't realize it's not, that stone isn't, that you don't like it, but we can easily take it off again. It's just,
So I guess, you're proposing, I mean, it's there, stone just on the first floor?
yeah, just up to the little pent roof there.
Okay,
so did the city issue a stop work order? Is that
Yeah, they did.
why?
Yeah.
okay, okay.
What did you use to install the veneer stone?
I just glued it on. It's like,
Construction adhesive?
yeah,
That's what I
something
thought.
similar.
Picture.
It's like a solid brick wall, but then it has like a layer of concrete on there. I can easily just paint it too. And then that right there, that's just some upright sections that had actual wood lath and some plaster, and then behind that was an airspace and then some upright wood. It's almost like a fake build out there is what it looks like. And it's kind of various different materials in different areas there.
So it was,
No, definitely not. Just 10-foot height.
So that's before, so
it's just, it's just,
center doors, where there's the black doors, the red doors, all that stuff, and then the wall.
and then what's the,
okay.
oh,
So it was your intent to do the entire facade of, like, the full facade? and
No.
inside?
No, definitely not. Just from the pent roof down.
Well, no, I mean, but the full width of the building.
Yeah, just those uprights and then that area where the two windows are.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm painting the rest of
Are
it.
you leaving the brick above alone at this point with the white paint that's kind of
Well, yeah,
Are you painting that as
I'm just
down?
on the wood and the decorative brick is
Right.
what I was painting, but I can easily do the rest, you know.
No, I'm not saying you have to, I just, the, kind of the way it's modeled has the same feeling as the way the stone is modeled. That's why I wasn't sure if you were leaving it or not.
I wasn't sure.
Okay.
It's-
Right now, definitely, obviously, you're painting the cornice
yeah,
going across.
yeah.
Wood, yeah. Lisa painted, but yeah, it's like. All the others. Oh,
Trying to find the other.
okay. Straight.
So, what was it?
I think it was, I'm guessing it was stucco.
It was stucco ahead of, before?
Yeah, it's two different kinds of stucco, actually. The smaller uprights have more of a
Okay. Maybe it wasn't-
softer stucco, but then the window area there, the bigger area is more like a really,
Yeah, I'm guessing there was a
Concrete.
storefront there at one time, and then when it was converted to
it probably
residential,
was, yeah.
filled in like
Yeah.
that, yeah. That molded brick between the second and third floor is beautiful. I never noticed that before.
Yeah, way up.
I mean, I think you should be commended for, trying to improve a building that's, obviously been deteriorating for a very, very long time. Unfortunately, I think you just chose the wrong material for the first floor. I mean, there's just no historic precedent for that, other than the scourge of formstone that blazed through the city in the 1950s and 60s and ruined a lot of historic architecture.
Yeah,
So we have that precedent that I don't think is, we want to, encourage.
I know that you put in your narrative that there was an estimate. Was that an estimate to fix the stucco? Is that what that cost was?
no, that was just what I estimated would, what we had already done, actually.
Okay.
It looks like the windows have changed with the surrounds, right? The two windows that are there
Yeah.
used to have a rounded arch that matched upstairs.
Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
the windows didn't originally have casings either, so he, kind of trimmed it because that
The depth of the bricks.
artificial stone can't,
Right. And that's
it can't turn corners, yeah. So.
Yeah, it's just not something that, like you said, has precedent anywhere. And I'm not saying that the stucco is amazing.
No, but it's, it has this, stucco is a historic material. It has, precedent in the city. I think, I'm not sure how much information you were given when you got the stop work order, but basically the reason you're here tonight is because what you've done basically violates 3 of the 10 Secretary of Interior standards, which is what we use to review construction or renovation in the city.
Yeah,
I'll just read to you. The standards aren't long, so I'll just read them to you briefly. Standard number 2 says the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alterations of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Standard number 5 says distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. And standard number 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work will be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportions, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and the environment. I think reading that, it basically says that the material that you chose is just the wrong material. You covered historic material with material that's not appropriate in the city. I can't see how, as a commission, we can do anything other than vote to recommend denial of this application, and ask you to remove it and to repair the stucco, and the moldings. Yeah, basically just undo everything you did. That's our mandate as a historical commission. That being said, we are a recommending body. We would make that recommendation and would go to city council. It would be then upon you to make your argument to city council why our recommendation is unreasonable, or hopefully you just accept our recommendation and repair the damage you've done. But we are a recommended body. And,
Yeah,
you know,
that's-
ultimately, the case has to be made before city council.
Yeah, no, I understand your position.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at this point in time.
Did you remove any stucco?
No, no, I didn't.
All right, well, I think we need to make a motion so we can move it on to city council. Motion to deny the application. You have that, Steve,
Okay,
there.
yeah, I'll make the motion. Mr. Chairman, I recommend that city council deny certificate, it was on. Deny certificate of appropriateness for the construction request based on failure to meet the following Secretary of Interior standards. Those being standards number 2, 5, and 9, which I read earlier.
All right, is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All right, that's, motion carries.
Mr. Byler, because it was a denial, would be discussed by city council at the council committee meeting on September 3rd, which is the day after Labor Day, and I'll mail you that information.
Okay.
However, because it's a denial, you have the option to say you don't want to go on to city council, that you will work with building codes and just remove what was there. You can repair the stucco and repaint the stucco without this board's review, but they want to see that the stone is removed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll just,
How is it here, but if you can peel it off or pry it off with.
yeah, I'll just take it off.
Whatever damage is under there.
Yeah,
And you can decide now that you want to withdraw and you're just gonna remove it, or
Yeah, I'll
let me know
just-
in 5 days. They have.
I'll just remove it.
You're gonna remove it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll talk to the building code people that you're gonna speak to them about what you need to do to get a permit. And you can keep the scaffolding because you're free to paint.
Yeah, that,
That's good.
all right, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
All right, we have one more item. Item number 5, conceptual discussion. Guess it's the 2 people left in the room. 12 Coral Street.
Nathan, are you showing your slides or should I?
Oh, you can.
Okay.
If you guys want to come up here and, Suzanne, you're bringing it up? Okay. You want to
I
introduce?
don't have like a PowerPoint, so there's individual.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to introduce yourselves and introduce the project and then
Go ahead.
go from there.
My
One is probably not on, it's not green. There you go.
There you go. My name's Ben Miller. I'm Nathan's brother, so we're 2 brothers, and we enjoy working in the city here. And yeah, so we have this lot that we purchased, and we want to bring some value to the neighborhood, so we're looking to build on this property here.
I'm Nathan, about a year younger than he is. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to just go through the floor plans here? Suzanne can just scroll through your, just briefly explain the project and then.
Sure. So what we're proposing to do is build a side-by-side townhome style. Not I don't want to call it apartment complex, but it would basically be 2 units side by side, and then it'll be. I mean, we'd like to build 3 stories, and we'll have a carport in the middle to service each of the 2 apartments. That would each have one space there, and then we'll have a bedroom on the first floor as well with a bathroom, and then the second floor would be your kitchen, living room area, and then have a bathroom there, and then the third floor would have the 2 additional bedrooms on it.
So this, looking at your photos, there was 2 homes and there was a fire and then was it 14 room? What, 12?
Yeah,
12 Coral Street.
12 Coral is the one that we have, and then it's,
You have, that it's next to, okay.
yeah.
The one on the right.
That's the one that's no
Final
longer there.
It burned and then they
So going back to your floor plan, is the one side is facing Coral Street?
Yeah, so,
Orientation there.
yeah, so it would be built kind of the length of the alley to the
Right.
right-hand side, and then we would have,
There.
it would have the general, the front facade would face Coral Street, which would be unit 1 there, would face the front, and then you would have, your unit, the other one off the back.
Okay,
So
So that's the alley.
yeah.
are you proposing to build up to the curb line or to the?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Have you gone through zoning and?
We have, yes.
Okay, and they didn't have an issue with that?
They didn't, no.
So they're okay with you eliminating the sidewalk?
They are, yes. I mean-
I mean, it's an 11-foot cartway. I would be concerned about building a 2x6 stud wall right on a street.
Sure.
So that's right, that facade is right up to the.
Right on the street, so
Okay.
cars are gonna be driving right past that
Sure.
Like up to the
wood
grass.
frame wall. So yes, they're building out into what is now, or where the fence, that fence.
Yeah,
is.
right there.
Yeah.
Is there an image that puts this next to the existing building?
It doesn't. We don't have, I don't believe we have one at this point yet.
It is a story taller than the neighbor.
That's what I'm trying to picture, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of do Google Street View and kind of go up and down Coral Street, there's a pair of 3-story houses just down the street across on the corner of Lake.
Mm-hmm.
But this block is primarily 2.5-story, or 2 or 2.5-story houses. Now, the next block down, going south, it's all 3-story houses. So,
Mhm.
it's not,
I mean,
yes, there's a 3-story.
block down. Most of these are 2 with the dormer
Yeah,
on.
so you're proposing a house that is taller than its neighbors, which isn't, necessarily a problem. Just a couple of things I noticed is when I'm looking at the design, the vertical board and batten siding on the first floor is unnecessary.
Mhm.
I think it just kind of calls attention to itself, and that is kind of when you see that kind of change material within the city, that generally indicates that it was a commercial building with a storefront, and they filled it in at some later date.
Sure.
I don't think you need to pretend that is the case, and then I think it would actually look better if the house were just kind of simpler, it was all lap siding.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's okay to have kind of a simple form. It's a modern building.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think it kind of wants a cornice.
Yeah.
Or something at the roof. I mean, because if you look at every other house in
Right.
the neighborhood, there's something up there.
And then the historic ones down the street have
Yeah.
fairly heavy corners up
Yeah.
there, yeah.
And I think just building a cube like that, like this, without any kind of lid
Sure.
to it, is kind of awkward.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend, when you come back for your formal application, is that you eliminate the board and batten siding on the first floor. The door style is fine. The little pent roof over the front door is kind of charming. But I would make the whole building lap siding. I mean, the north elevation with that kind of quirky arrangement of windows, I think is, kind of cool.
It's like a face.
It's a little bit, yeah.
Going back to the roof real quick, I think when you come back, putting this next to the existing building and lining, you might find that, like here, you've got the door down. I know you're sloping up, but the neighbor's up 2 or 3 steps. Like, how does your door align with their door? How does your door overhang align with the one that's next to it? Is it right up, or you're going to be off?
Sure.
You're going to be building right next to an existing.
So that's really critical.
Yeah.
Because you're already, it sounds bad, you've already changed the roof line, right? So they're already going up. If everything is kind of off, it's really not going to look right together.
Sure.
That's kind of critical.
I also noticed your kind of crude site plan, you're showing an 18-inch wide access alley, like a maintenance alley.
Mm-hmm.
18 feet?
No, I'm sorry, 18 inches.
Yeah, that's,
No, you said 18 inches.
Yeah, it's 18 inches.
Okay.
I was wondering if you had talked to zoning and the building department about, couldn't you just build up to the property line and not have that, that 18 inches is really awkward. You're gonna have to get really skinny carpenters to
absolutely.
build that wall.
Is that, I didn't notice that on there.
Yeah, it says it's
I mean,
It's definitely not by choice. The next door neighbor said, "You're not putting your building against mine."
really.
So the zone,
No other way around it. So
you had to be at least 18, is that what?
yeah, I mean, that's what we came to an agreement with the neighbor then.
Okay.
With, all the buildings in the city, they're, non-conforming because they're side by side. So now all of a sudden you rip a house down
Right.
when it was destroyed by a fire. And now, what are we just not going to make these lots buildable anymore because of, building, 12, 13-foot wide houses. And that just really looks weird and it's just not functional.
When I saw that 18 inches, I'm like, that's gonna be so difficult.
Yeah.
To sheet
Abso-
wall and
absolutely.
siding and,
Mhm.
it's gonna have to be a 1-hour rated wall because it's so close
Yeah.
to the property line. But if that's the agreement, then,
I mean, I think we should somehow figure out a way to change the zoning law a little bit to allow for, especially if there were existing buildings, that you don't have to, you're gonna, anyway, your siding's not gonna need to be maintained anymore after it's
Yeah.
after you have a new building there. You use proper construction techniques, you make sure it's,
unless we change the child labor laws and we'll let,
Little kids in there. So do you intend to have some sort of a gate, or is it always open to the carport?
So we had discussed it with zoning, that we would basically have like I don't know, want to call it a false facade, but, kind of follow the contour of the building so that it's not accessible from the front and back. You would just build, basically, I don't know if you call it 2x4, 2x6 wall, and you would just side over against it. Then they would access it from the middle of our carport. We'll put a big door in the middle there to maintain the area in there. We'll put a CMU wall in between there so that, you're not just going back there and it's maintained, it's, you put like a 42-inch door in so it's easy to get materials in and out easier. And, that way we don't have, their zoning's concern was safety, people going back there, hanging out, doing all kinds of illicit, and trash was another thing for them. So, we want to keep the city cleaned up. We don't want to contribute to the problem.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was wondering about.
I just have one other comment that really has nothing to do with the historical commission.
Sure.
But I was thinking, you may want to rethink the floor plan about not having 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor and no bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's gonna be a hard house to live in. You have 2 bedrooms, you've got to go downstairs, use the bathroom.
Sure.
It's just
Well, that's historic in row houses.
It is.
It's true.
Yeah.
But, we're now
Person of a
21st.
certain age who gets up several times. I do
That's-
not want to have to go downstairs.
That's a good observation, though.
So, I know you want to kind of maximize the room sizes, but if you could,
Sure.
live with a slightly smaller bedroom and get a bathroom on the 3rd floor,
Mhm.
I think that would be, make it a more attractive unit to rent.
So just, a question for you guys. What is your opinion on, this is getting off track, but like on like a bed, having a bedroom on the first floor, like we were discussing it, if you're kind of your master down there, the parents are all the way down on the first floor and your kids are on the third floor,
That's not something we look at, really.
I was gonna say, but at least they're on the first floor beside the front door, so that if the kids are sneaking in or out,
You gotta be the gatekeeper right there. It also gives you some kind of opportunities for different kinds of housing. This could also be a small in-home business.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could just be an office on the first floor if somebody wanted to work at from
Or
home
it could
and
be a
have two
TV
bedrooms.
room or-
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it works out.
Could it be
Yeah.
somebody with limited mobility?
Correct.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
doesn't climb that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it could be modified. I mean, the bathroom is too small to be accessible right now, but it could be modified as an accessible
Mhm.
bedroom.
But just somebody who wants one-story living, not. and-
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed that isn't also under our purview is that you have Columbia, PA in the address block.
Yeah, that's not.
Ah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that.
okay.
So that'll be changed.
Blame the architect.
The carport, that goes through to the 18-inch alley?
It's showing that, but it will be closed off because
Thank you.
we don't want, if we have the facade, like we want to eliminate the, the issue of, people being able to get back there
In that space.
and just sneaking through, like, if it's closed off on both ends,
Yeah.
you can get in there, you don't really, unless you have security cameras up, you don't really know,
Yeah.
if somebody's in there. So, it's more for a safety thing to make sure it's closed off.
I have a double lot that goes from street to street,
Hmm.
and I don't see it much anymore because I've got so many gates between High Street and Vine Street, but it used to be a shortcut for like the neighborhood kids
Oh, hmm.
coming through there, and I could see that kind of little alley becoming
Right.
or just, for, a place for kids to hide or sneak around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's better to keep that kind of sealed up. So, it's just for maintenance.
It is, yeah. So we had, kind of a little basic, not anything super detailed, but, we did show them,
And they were okay.
that were, yes. And it may come up with, we haven't gotten to that department yet, but like the traffic, or not the traffic, but, I don't know, drawing a blank on, what department that would be, but probably engineering. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Lake Street's not a busy street.
No, it's not.
It's a narrow street and, it's an 11-foot wide alley and kind of making a tight turn into that is,
Mhm.
that
20-foot wide carpet.
again, I
There's
think
probably a car
you
there
should
already.
give every consideration to kind of reinforce those corners, because
Sure.
I'm just afraid this building's gonna get hit by a car,
Hmm.
so just be aware of that. Maybe that first floor wall should be CMU.
Hmm.
Since it's conceptual, do you have other questions for us, things that you were looking input from us, so when you come back, you're in good shape, or did we cover a lot of it?
A fair amount, I guess, like would you want, to see siding samples and that kind of thing, or like colors? What are you,
Material samples, whatever you're intending to use, if you have a cut sheet of the window, product sheet of the window that you're gonna use to bring that along. Yeah, that would be the main things.
okay,
If you have material for the awning or something like that.
okay.
I'm assuming is the roof of the little awning over or the little porch roof over the door, shingles? Is it going to be standing seam metal?
Asphalt.
Okay, so bring sample, those samples. And
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, if you have your materials with colors.
And like what kind of colors are you guys looking to see? Like, you obviously don't want to make it, the exact same color that the rest of the neighborhood is, or is that what you guys want to see? Like, I mean, obviously, this was usually a historical neighborhood, or like, we don't have it's a new building now, but you still, like what are you guys looking to see for something like that?
I mean, we generally don't review colors.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, we will if it's integral color.
If the color is integral to the material, like vinyl siding.
Sure.
They don't have a palette of.
But yeah, we don't have like
Sure.
of preferred historic colors.
Mm-hmm.
It would be hard with vinyl siding to maybe go off the rails, so.
Probably stay away from like baby blue. But, I think most of the colors vinyl sidings available in are pretty non-offensive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, except for maybe like a baby blue.
Right.
We wouldn't have an objection to any of the colors that, you can kind of get from Certainteed or All-Side or.
Sure. No, that's helpful. I wasn't sure, like, we still will put a color scheme together, kind of showing what we want to do.
Yeah.
I'm
assuming you're going to use vinyl windows. There's not a whole lot of choices in colors with vinyl windows. I mean, there are some manufacturers that are starting to make colors.
You can get some different colors.
Generally, there's like white and,
There it is,
and clay and ivory.
This was the other guy's sample.
Oh, no, he left the samples.
That he got half of his sample. Oh, well. Yeah, any other comments that would be helpful for them?
I will send a letter
Summarizing their requests, both the suggestions they made about the not changing from vertical to horizontal and adding some kind of cornice or finish to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then all this what you will need to provide.
Okay. Sounds good.
And it would be helpful to bring a drawing next time showing
Okay.
the Carl's,
Right.
the facade on Carl Street next to the, number 14.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of see where the windows, the relationship between windows in your house and their house, and are that. I think, did your drawing just kind of say like ceilings are like 8 feet ceiling, finished ceiling? Was it 9 feet on the first floor?
I think it's probably 9 feet on the first floor.
I think that's kind of typical for row houses like this, kind of first floor is a little bit higher, second floor is your kind of typical 8-foot ceiling. So you're probably in the range that it's not going to look out of scale with the house next to it, but it's helpful to see
Okay.
the two houses next to each other.
Yeah.
Your neighbor, they have siding right now?
They do, yes, between the two properties.
So
On the side.
It's where our house usually was, or Coral Street, they sided that with,
So it's a
Raised side.
brick house, but they put siding where, or.
yeah, just,
That's fake brick, yeah.
No.
I'm talking about right, yeah, I mean, there's siding where the fire was.
Yes, right.
Where the meeting.
I mean, your neighbor's house very well could be framed as well
Sure.
with just that artificial brick on it, because that's not real brick.
Right. Yeah, the other house was framed, so I'm guessing it's.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and look forward to you guys coming back then.
absolutely. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other business? Suzanne assigning anybody? I don't, Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I went for you last time, Danielle.
All right, unless there are any objections, then we will adjourn at 7:55.